Hello and happy Brandon Pfaadt Day right here on the PHNX D-Backs podcast. Of course, my name is Derek Monti, occasionally known as the mayor of PHNX. This is my vice mayor and your thunderstick, the one and only Jesse Friedman.
We're actually not PHNX today, Derek. We are PHNX.
That's all my titles all year long. And he gave me started was like that. A ski to you all, big ski to the Brandon Pfaadt family and Brandon Pfaadt himself. We are very excited to talk about Brandon Pfaadt's tremendous rookie season that he had that culminated in one of the best postseason runs we've ever seen from a pitcher on this franchise. But before we get to that, we did have, of course, some exciting things to talk about, Jesse. We are officially 99 days away from the opening day of Major League Baseball's regular season in 2024.
That's the Diamondbacks opening day, right?
I think that's baseball's opening day.
I believe there's the game in Korea happening.
Oh, is that an actual regular season opening day?
I think that is an actual regular season.
Yesterday, MLB
yes.
had 100 days yesterday. So, but maybe they're not factoring that game in either. Maybe they just mean the regular opening day of the regular season. But yes, that's definitely the Diamondbacks opening day, which means, of course, nothing's happening right now. It's 2 weeks before Christmas. Or not before Christmas. It's 2 weeks around Christmas. Everybody's on holiday. Everybody's taking some time off. What are you going to do with yourself for the next 99 days? Is that enough time for us to get ready for the 2024 season?
Probably not.
No.
I still feel like after the postseason run, this offseason is not going to feel nearly long enough. I don't know if I haven't fully recovered, and I don't know if I'll have fully recovered then.
No, definitely not. But also, Torrey will still have his Christmas lights up on his house, I'm sure. But
correct.
He's not going to have time to take those down. 99 days? No way. Not enough time. But the Diamondbacks did make a move. Exciting. I don't think we should use the Espo breaking news sounder for this, but the Diamondbacks did claim Collin Snider off waivers from the Kansas City Royals. He is a 28-year-old righty reliever, and honestly, could be one of those Mike Hazen reclamation projects that works out for this team. His numbers last year, not great, and his numbers in AAA also weren't very great, but he does have a pretty good sinker. Right.
Yeah. There's some intrigue here. Looking at Snider's arsenal, you can understand why the Diamondbacks wanted to make this move. But yeah, the numbers aren't fantastic.
No.
4.87 ERA, a 1.82 WHIP in 20 1/3 innings with the Kansas City Royals out of the bullpen this past season. He had more walks than strikeouts. And yeah, he had a 5.91 ERA when in AAA this past year as well. So for a guy who's 28 years old, obviously not an ideal place to be for him in his major league career. But yeah, I mean, we've certainly seen moves like this pan out on occasion where, one team is sort of willing to move on from a guy and he finds his way with the next team who claims him. So yeah, the arsenal here is interesting. He throws a 96 mile an hour sinker that has a considerable amount of drop to it. His slider is around 85 miles an hour. That's his primary secondary pitch. That pitch fared quite well this past season, actually, a 36% whiff rate. Opposing hitters hit just 0.67 against that pitch. Obviously, a pretty small sample, given that he only threw about 20 innings. But the opposing hitters also hit 487 off of his sinker. So there's some work to be done there, but a 96 mile an hour sinker and an 85 mile an hour slider with good movement, you can understand why the Diamondbacks would be intrigued enough to want to make this move.
I feel like for a while, until maybe he's not good, until maybe he has that outing where he blows a game, I am forever going to reference Ryan Thompson whenever Mike Hazen makes a move like this for a reliever, because again, there was something different about Ryan Thompson. We kind of dove into his numbers And we did see there that, his limited innings pitched kind of made his numbers blow up. He only really had like a couple of bad outings, and outside of that was actually not bad at all with the Tampa Bay Rays. But when they DFA'd him, the Diamondbacks were quick to pick him up, and he was just lights out for this team, not only for the rest of the regular season, but in the postseason. So it does feel like Hazen has the ability perhaps at times to see some of these kind of guys that might have some promise and, think about bringing them over, pairing them with Brent Strom and seeing what Brent could potentially get out of them as a pitching coach.
Yeah, he does. I also want to add he has a minor league option. So the D-backs, putting a waiver claim in and claiming him doesn't mean that they have to keep him on the major league roster or anything. He's a depth piece for them. Someone who is on the 40-man. He does take up a spot on the 40-man roster, but not a guy who, has to make the major league roster in order to stay in the organization.
Which is interesting because he does bring their 40-man roster full. And Jacob in the chat asks,
yes,
what's the delay on announcing Gurriel? Physical not done or trying to trade someone off 40-man instead of DFA? You are ahead of us, Jacob, but that's exactly where we were going with this because the Diamondbacks do need to clear space for Lourdes Gurriel Jr. And as you alluded to, Jesse was kind of, hypothesizing that this could be due to the Diamondbacks trying to get a trade done right now at this point.
It is very possible. Yeah. I mean, in years past when the Diamondbacks have needed a 40-man roster spot, frankly, it hasn't always been difficult for them in some ways, just from a transaction standpoint. They've generally had guys on the 40-man roster that, you could sort of let go. And it was just kind of, not that the D-backs wanted to do that. But at this point, the talent level on this 40-man roster has reached a level where there aren't any clear options that you could just, designate for assignment or, guys who could easily pass through waivers. That's just not really the reality of the situation anymore. You look at guys on the 40-man, I can't really think of anyone who I could easily see the Diamondbacks, being willing to do that. Diego Castillo,
maybe Peter
Strzelecki, yeah, maybe, but he's kind of I view him as being at least a valuable depth piece, someone that can be in AAA, and you can use him if you need to. The Diamondbacks traded Andrew Chafin for him and seem to like some things about him. So yeah, there aren't really any clear options here for the Diamondbacks to create that spot. And if you're in that situation, then making a trade is kind of the way to try to get around that.
Let's do something that's absolutely terrible, like arbitration, and try to decide which guys that the Diamondbacks might be willing to part ways with in a trade off the 40-man roster that would potentially clear up some of that space. Now, I know he could be a future starting pitcher for this, for this team, but Blake Walston is an interesting prospect as far as trading him. Is that somebody that you would feel comfortable with the Diamondbacks parting ways with if that leads to them adding to their starting rotation now, like a move for a starting pitcher that brings, someone?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect this trade to be all that significant necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, it could be,
okay.
We give you two guys that you'll put on your 40-man. We take back one guy that we'll put on our 40-man. Maybe the D-backs take back a prospect or two. It's not necessarily a trade that would have a big impact on the major league roster. Although, I mean, I guess it could. I guess it could be part of a larger thing that they're trying to get done.
They've said that they are trying to get that done. And when, again, there's not like a package here outside the guys you don't want to trade. There's not a lot of guys here that you figure could really move the needle on a big trade for a big starting pitcher or like a Corbin Burns or something like that, right? So
yeah,
I get what you're saying as far as it being a little bit more of a low key move that just kind of makes a roster spot and allows the Diamondbacks to be able to add Lourdes for now. They are still active though, and it's going to be interesting to see how a trade could impact this because we don't know. We don't know the size of a trade that they could be attempting to pull off or what assets, what pieces that they could be, adding in there. Right now on their 40-man roster, as far as outfielders go, they have Jorge Barosa, Dominic Fletcher,
they're not
DFAing
Jorge Barosa.
Oh no, I'm not suggesting that they DFA
I'm not
any
saying
of
you
these
were.
guys.
I'm just saying kind of thinking through all these names. Barosa is a definite no. I mean, Pavin Smith, I guess I could, but the D-backs would want to try to trade Pavin Smith.
Yeah.
He's
Right.
a guy who at least has enough value where you wouldn't just want to get rid of him for nothing.
Same
and I
thing
think
with Jace. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say Jace Peterson is the same thing, right? Like I know that he had his rough, start with this team, but there's still value there. And of course, packaging them together for one player, not only could potentially bring in a quality, perhaps reliever, maybe a back end starter even, and then it also, due to the assets the Diamondbacks give up, free up those roster spots so that they can add Lourdes and also maybe add the DH, because that's also something that's pending. If they do add a DH from free agency, there's another roster spot that they have to free up.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not just that they have to make a spot for Lourdes. They probably have to make a spot for at least one more guy after that, maybe multiple.
Nicholas says Pavin and Jace for Bieber. Who says no? The Cleveland Guardians probably.
Yeah, the Cleveland Guardians probably
say no to that.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that I know. Yeah, Elise mentions Pavin Smith and Emmanuel Rivera as being guys who don't have clear opportunities for playing time. Yeah, there's a lot of guys on the 40-man where you don't necessarily project them to have big major league roles, but you still want to have depth at every position, and guys who are in the minors who you could bring up, if you absolutely needed them. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. Maybe this isn't that the D-backs are trying to make a trade. Maybe, I think the deal was pending physical on Sunday, so maybe that hasn't happened yet, or maybe that the physical was done and there were some unexpected findings or whatnot. I guess that's at least an outside possibility. So
maybe Lourdes is just with his family on vacation.
It could be that Lourdes wasn't in the country or whatnot. They just needed some time to figure some things out. So it's not alarming, but I would have expected it to have been announced at this point. So it is interesting.
We're waiting
for sure.
We're waiting is basically what we're saying. We're definitely waiting for this news to break. By the way, make sure to check out Jesse's article on gophnx.com covering why Lourdes Gurriel could age better than most and how he fits on the D-backs roster. And it's a wonderful piece. This guy never stops. So make sure to check out everything he has going on over at gophnx.com. Also, I'll tell you this much. I know physical items are typically what we think of as gifts, but sometimes a better gift is experiences, and Game Time has you covered for any of those tickets you want to give someone this holiday season, for a concert, for a show, most importantly for a sporting event. You can get tickets to upcoming everything. Last minute tickets. It's the best place for last minute ticket deals. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Those tickets make absolutely great holiday gifts. That is the gift to give the person that has everything. There's those hard to shop people for in your life, like this guy over here next to me. I can't read him. I don't know anything about him. He's an enigma to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get him tickets to a Suns game is what I'm going to do, because he'll love that. But
are you actually going to get me tickets?
No,
wow, now you're
not spending that kind of money
obligated.
On you.
All right,
get out of here. But you can snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Another great place to check out this holiday season, Somburros. I went to Somburros this weekend and got one of the greatest breakfast deals that I could have ever imagined. They're for $5. For $5.
Ridiculous breakfast deal.
I got a breakfast burrito and a coffee with horchata in it. It was absurd. It was delicious. It was incredible. Horchata is an amazing addition to coffee that I did not know until this weekend. But
you had coffee with horchata in it. That is
as like the cream, pretty basically. Fun. Yeah, it's amazing. Great. It was delicious. It was electric. And Somburros provided me with all of that excellence, and just for $5, it was an incredible value. So make sure to check out Somburros. Most Valley locations, I don't know if all of them do, but they even have a drive-through. I didn't know that. I thought it was like I didn't know they had a drive-through, so that made it even easier for me to go there. They also have easy party platters this holiday season to feed the entire crowd you have coming to your home if you're like me and you have the family coming over. So check out their locations throughout the Valley and in Flagstaff. You're never far from delicious, time-tested Sonoran-style recipes, lovingly prepared since 1986. Let Somburros cater all your holiday fiestas, big or small. Order online or find one near you by visiting somburros.com. season's eatings with some burros. Yeah, and let me tell you, don't miss out on that breakfast. It was incredible. But speaking of incredible things, let's talk about Brandon Pfaadt's incredible rookie season. It's hard to think of what he did this year as being his rookie year. I don't know if it's the aura about him. I don't know if it's, we're going to talk about how cool, calm, and collected Brandon is at all times, almost to a fault. Our man Damon over here wants to see more emotion out of him, wants to see fire. You know what he's not going to get? Any of that, ever, because the guy's just too cool for that, right? But Brandon Pfaadt did transform over the course of this season from a guy who looked like he still had a lot of work to do to pitching in the playoffs as one of the best postseason pitchers in Arizona Diamondbacks history. And that's not hyperbole. That's actually backed up by his achievements throughout the postseason, his everything he did. And honestly, it's just been so much fun to watch. Corbin Carroll gets a lot of the talk about being, obviously the rookie of the year and being the best rookie on this team. But there are so many young guys that kind of get lost. And Brandon Pfaadt is one of them, considering that transformation he made throughout the course of the season.
So we go into spring training, right? And there's all the young starting pitchers, right? There's Brandon Pfaadt, there's Ryan Nelson, there's Dre Jameson, and there's Tommy Henry. And of course, Diamondbacks fans are all convinced that out of those four, Brandon Pfaadt is the guy who clearly deserves a starting rotation spot above everyone else. And granted, Ryan Nelson and Dre Jameson pitched really well at the end of 2022. So, I think they were both viewed pretty positively at the time as well. Tommy Henry struggled a little bit more in 2022 than some of the others. He was also certainly in the mix. But I believe it was on March 19th, Derek, that the Diamondbacks made the decision to send Brandon Pfaadt down to minor league camp. He did not make the team. And at the time, people were not so happy. At least some people were not so happy because Brandon Pfaadt put up pretty darn good numbers in spring training. He did outpitch all of his competition based on those numbers, and yet the Diamondbacks decided to go with some of the other guys. Right, Ryan Nelson wound up making the rotation. Dre Jameson made the roster as a bullpen arm, which was kind of a last minute decision. But it wouldn't be too long before we would see Brandon Pfaadt in the majors. He didn't make the opening day roster, but he winds up on the major league roster on May 3rd. This was right after Madison Bumgarner had been designated for assignment just a few days prior, and he got the Texas Rangers in his first game in the majors, which is kind of funny to think with how the season ended. That the Diamondbacks would wind up pitching against that same team in the World Series.
It was foreboding, I guess.
Later.
It was very foreboding.
But yeah, that start didn't go so well, Derek.
No, it did not.
There were a couple of innings where a little shaky, but he was getting by. And when all was said and done, the Texas Rangers, certainly one of the best offensive teams in the game. And there's a reason that they won the World Series. And that was a tough assignment for him. And it didn't end particularly well.
It did not. And of course, from that point on, we know that he kind of had an up and down season as far as being optioned. He was optioned on May 27th, recalled again on June 29th, optioned one day later on June 30th, and then recalled on July 22nd. And the most significant thing that happened there is that phone call that we talked about with the one and only Brent Strom that happened while he was on vacation during the All-Star break, or he's back home in Louisville, which we will make sure to say that correctly. But he did get a call from Brent Strom that kind of changed his season, right? And he got a call from Brent Strom at like 11 o'clock at night. Yeah, like a mad scientist, literally. I think he called him Marty. He's like, Marty, we got to go back. Like, it was very much Back to the Future kind of thing, But he received some pitching coaching, I guess, some changing the side of the mound he was pitching from, a bit about his delivery, about arm deception and things like that, pitch deception. And next thing you know, Brandon Pfaadt was a very, very good starting pitcher. It seemed like a lot of his control issues kind of got fixed after Brent Strom called him with that change and after he worked a bit on it. I mean, he still had some performances, up and down performances the rest of the season, but he definitely became a much better, more consistent pitcher after that point.
He really did. Yeah. The second half of the season, after that call up, as you mentioned, on July 22nd, Brandon Pfaadt was a different pitcher the rest of the way. I think you can chalk up a decent amount of that to Brent Strom's idea to move him from the third base side of the rubber to the first base side. I mean, it's hard not to, correlation is not causation, but I mean, he became, significantly more effective pretty much immediately upon that change being made. So I don't know exactly how much of an impact it had. I think Pfaadt got better at other things too, but it clearly played at least some role in the success that he had in the second half of the season.
And that's a good point, because Strom went on this whole tangent with us in the dugout at one point where he was like drawing, like he was illustrating the arm angle, and he was illustrating how, like, just trying to explain how throughout the game, especially, that the opposing batters can pick up based on your arm movement what kind of pitch you're going to throw. And it was, he was basically saying that when you throw from a same point, it just helps with making it that much more deceptive as far as what pitch you're throwing. And all of this stuff just makes so much sense to Brent Strom. Like, to us regular ass people, we just are like, why would throwing like a foot over make a difference? And he's like, because it does. I'm not going to waste my time explaining it to you, but if you want to, I have this chart, right? And so that's like you said, you don't know how much exactly, but again, when it comes to control issues, it's not a matter of talent or his ability to throw pitches. Sometimes it's just a matter of needing a little bit of coaching to make sure that you are being a pitcher that batters can't really pick up on what you're throwing.
We should look at some numbers.
Let's look at numbers.
So Brandon Pfaadt's full regular season stats, not great. 96 innings, a 5.72 ERA, a 22.3% strikeout rate, which is right around league average, 6.2% walk rate, which is lower than league average, so pretty solid there. But a 1.41 whip, a 0.3 FWAR, as Derek likes to say.
I love that you said that.
And entirely too many home runs, right? I mean, that was kind of the narrative throughout the season. More so in that first half, those first couple stints when he was really struggling than the second half. But and I think people kind of saw that coming. Like, he gave up a lot of home runs in Reno as well. Granted, everyone gives up a lot of home runs in Reno, so it was a little bit hard to tell how much of that was just Reno and how much of that was the fact that Brandon Pfaadt likes to throw. He likes to pitch up in the zone a lot, right? His arsenal kind of tailors to that. And on occasion that doesn't work out well for him. Occasionally that does end with those pitches landing in the seats. But if we look at a breakdown of his season in the first half versus the second half, so this is the first two stints in the majors on the left side, and then that final stint on the right side, a lot of things got better, right? His ERA was 9.82 in those first 6 starts. It was 4.22 in the second half of the season over 13 appearances. His whip went from 187 to 124. And perhaps most importantly, his home run per 9 went from 3.2, which is extremely high, to 1.7 in the second half, which is still high, but it is not so high that you can't be a reasonably good and effective starting pitcher. And that's exactly what Brandon Pfaadt was for the D-backs in the second half of the season.
The second half is also a much bigger sample size. And I feel like, obviously, with the smaller sample size on the left, there is that fact that bad outings can impact that ERA in such greatly. But, I think this is the reason why the season stats do not show the value of Brandon Pfaadt and what he has become. More importantly, I think it's about the potential here for what he can continue to become, right? I think that's the big thing that we saw not only towards the end of the season, but in the playoffs. Those were high-pressure situations, and that is truly where he earned, the big game Brandon nickname, right? Because in the playoffs, he was just incredible. But again, you can look at those numbers, and especially someone that's not familiar with Brandon Pfaadt, a fan of another team, and maybe even say, like, why would we trade for a guy with these god-awful numbers? And it's because that doesn't tell the true story of who he is or who he's become. And especially when you see the way that he pitched in the postseason, you can't help but think that even that second half ERA of 4.22 is going to lower down maybe a sub-4 next season. If that's the case, and these other guys, Eduardo Rodriguez, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, continue to do what they do, that's a formidable foursome of starting pitchers that the Diamondbacks will have going every couple of days there.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, there's still some moves to be, to be completed between now and when the season starts. But I think we can say right now, what was it, 99 days until opening day?
Yeah.
I think we can say right now that Brandon Pfaadt is one of the X factors for the D-backs in 2024.
Absolutely.
Like, if he comes out and he gives you 180 innings of a 3.7 ERA, that could do wonders for this baseball team. I mean, that could push this baseball team, really into that upper echelon, that upper tier of teams around the league. If you have, not only Gallen, Kelly, and Rodriguez doing what you expect them to do, but Brandon Pfaadt, kind of joining the fray and being almost as effective as all those other guys, it would be incredible. And based on what we saw in the second half and in the postseason, I don't think it's all that outrageous to think that Brandon Pfaadt could take that kind of a step forward in 2024. He really was effective down the stretch.
He gained so much experience throughout the season, and of course, it's not easy adjusting from the minor leagues to the major leagues. We've seen that he didn't have that clean, jump to the major leagues like Corbin Carroll did, but few rookies do. Few guys end up coming up and staying up their whole season the way that Carroll did. But let's take a look at a couple of Baseball Savant pages, shall we? Because I know that's this guy's favorite thing. First, 100%. We have Brandon Pfaadt Savant page for the season.
Yeah, which is, like his season stats, it's not pretty. You wouldn't expect it to be. He had an ERA of almost 6 if you combine all of the numbers together. But there are, even here, there are still some numbers that would suggest he was better than that. His expected ERA was 4.48, which is way lower than his actual ERA of 5.72. And yeah, a lot of these numbers are not, alarmingly poor or anything. It's really just some of those at the bottom. You see the barrel rate in the 3rd percentile. Barrels are basically just ideal batted balls. These are the batted balls that go for, doubles, triples, and homers pretty much.
Those are those pitches right down the middle that he was throwing at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. That's a good point. Like, when he was struggling at the beginning of the season, it was a little hard to read. Like, is this just his stuff isn't quite good enough, or is this just that he's throwing it right down the middle a little bit too often? And I think we all kind of figured it was the latter, that, it doesn't really matter how good your sweeper is. If you're throwing it middle, in a hitter advantage count, it's not going to end well for you.
It felt like he had difficulty adjusting when he wasn't hitting his spots, when his command wasn't there, when he wasn't able, and he would be close, right? He would be out on the outside edge, but his pitches would be landing just outside of the zone. He wouldn't be getting the calls on the close calls from the umpire. And then it would almost seem like the adjustment for him would be, all right, now I'm throwing it like dead center down the middle, right? And that seemed to be the problem, but that's something that he definitely seemed to correct in the postseason, because now let's take a look at his postseason.
Do we have it?
Do we have the postseason?
Ooh.
This is his postseason Baseball Savant page. Holy shit.
There's some bright red here, Derek.
Some bright red.
There's some very, very bright red.
I think even the listeners on the audio podcasting side can see this because of how bright red his chase rate is, his whiff percentage, his K percentage, his walk rate is. This is just incredible. He's still throwing ball, getting the barrel on the ball a lot, and he's still giving up some very hard hit balls. But there was just a lot of deception, a lot of swing and miss from him in the postseason. And it was exciting to see because it was in some big scenarios against some big time baseball players. And he was just out there throwing gas, Jesse. He's just throwing gas in the postseason.
Yeah. But at the same time, he's still throwing 93.5 miles an hour. Like, it wasn't like he was throwing any harder.
Yeah, it was just, it was the way that he was making his pitch, because there was just, there were a lot of pitches that, again, if they didn't swing at them, they were balls, but it was the way that pitchers just seemed, or batters, seemed lost in what he was doing at the plate. And he just was so confident about it. I mean, striking out, some of these guys and then just calmly walking off the mound back to the dugout. I am too Puerto Rican to even understand being that calm in a situation like that. I'm sorry, I can't.
Okay, so I have to go a little deeper on some of these numbers. So Brandon Pfaadt's chase percentage was in the 95th percentile. This is like, if you take his chase rate from the postseason and you pretend that it happened in the regular season, it would have been in the 95th percentile of all major league pitchers based on whatever process they use over at StatCast. His whiff rate would have been in the 97th percentile across baseball. The combination of those two things is outrageous.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that I don't know. This is something I should try to do. I'm not sure we could find a single pitcher in baseball who has a chase rate and a whiff rate that are that incredibly good. A lot of times pitchers who get a lot of strikeouts, they're like really elite at one or the other. They're either getting you to swing at a bunch of pitches out of the zone, or you just like can't hit whatever they're throwing, no matter whether it's in the zone or outside the zone. But doing both of those things at this elite a level is really unprecedented. If you look at Josh Hader, Derek, Josh Hader in 2023, considered the best strikeout pitcher in the sport. He was 92nd percentile in chase rate and 91st percentile in whiff rate. So postseason Brandon Pfaadt was better at getting guys to swing out of the zone and better at getting guys to swing and miss in general than the greatest strikeout pitcher in baseball in Josh Hader, who's probably about to make $100 million as a closer. That is just to kind of put in perspective, just like the volume of whiffs that Brandon Pfaadt was getting in the postseason. It was unreal. And obviously, the Phillies, they're a little bit of a free swinging team at time. That's maybe a bit of a weakness for them. But for Brandon Pfaadt to go and do what he did, not only in that series, but really like throughout the postseason as a whole, was really incredible.
Went out and joined Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling for the most strikeouts in a postseason by a Diamondbacks pitcher. He also had the highest K per nine rate amongst Arizona Diamondbacks starting pitchers in a single postseason with a minimum of 3 starts. What he did was incredible, legendary. And again, much to Damon's chagrin, he did it in such a calm manner. He did it like he had been there before 100 times. And that was what was just so incredible about him as a person, right? And I mean, there's you could sit there and talk about all of these numbers. Some of the things that he did were just historic. I mean, especially for a rookie to be doing it in his first postseason appearance. But the exciting part isn't just what he's done in the past, because that's behind us now. It's the idea that he could build on that, and he could be potentially this pitcher in the regular season for this team. And that's ace stuff. That's ace stuff that he has. I mean, the future of this team is in good hands. When we wonder what's going to happen if Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly do move on, Brandon Pfaadt is a very, very good pitcher to have on your roster right now for the future, right?
In the postseason, there were a total of was 5 appearances altogether, 5 starts, 22 innings, a 3.27 ERA, a 1.09 WHIP, 5 walks compared to 26 strikeouts. Just, like Brandon Pfaadt in the postseason was everything that the Diamondbacks needed him to be and more. And it didn't actually start all that well. If you go back, I actually, just for fun, the other day, this is what I do in my free time. I rewatch Diamondbacks postseason games and try to like pick up on things that I might not have noticed in the first place. And I watched Brandon Pfaadt pitch game 1 of the wild card series against the Milwaukee Brewers. It was not an especially good start to his postseason. 2 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. I think he got a little bit unlucky in that game. The Brewers had some dinky hits here and there.
Very true.
I don't think he pitched quite as poorly as that final line would show. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't a very good start to what turned out to be a really impressive postseason. But even in that game, like, he struck out 4 guys after getting in a heap of trouble in the first inning. He struck out the side, I think. he struck out 3 consecutive Brewers hitters in order to get out of that in the first inning. And they just like couldn't catch up to his fastball. Yeah. It was like Brewer, like even when it was in the strike zone, they were just swinging through his heater over and over again. And, throughout the postseason, it was maybe not so much the 4-seamer, but his sweeper was just an incredible pitch. His sweeper had a whiff rate over 50%. In the postseason, which means that when you swing at Brandon Pfaadt sweeper, you're missing more than half the time, which is just bonkers. Yeah. I mean, that's a ridiculous whiff rate, and it's why the little Savant page emulation thing that we made, it's why those numbers are so crazy. Like, you have a whiff rate over 50% on your primary out pitch. That's just otherworldly type numbers. And I mean, there were moments in the postseason where that's what Brandon Pfaadt looked like. I mean, yeah, especially that start against the Phillies, the 5 2/3 innings with 9 strikeouts, where Torey Lovullo said that he was booing himself as he walked out of the dugout to remove Brandon Pfaadt from the game. Like, there were moments when it was a level of dominance that we had never seen from Brandon Pfaadt, or really just about anyone else. He was that good.
And that remains the question is, again, are we going to see that version of him? And it feels more likely because, again, we know the numbers he was putting up in Reno, and those seemed just crazy considering it was Reno. Like, few pitchers end up having some of the numbers he had in AAA just due to the environment in which they pitch. Same thing with Amarillo, right? So we knew Pfaadt's stuff was good, and we knew it would play well at a major league level. It just seemed like it took him some time to adapt and adjust, and luckily he's under an incredible pitching coach in Strami, who, ended up being able to give him the correct advice. Oftentimes when you hear about legendary pitchers in baseball that ended up having a glorious career, they will talk about some piece of advice they got given at some point that was kind of career changing for them. And this might technically have been that for Brandon Pfaadt. I'm sure he's received lots of those, and he's been a very coachable player his entire life. We actually have his little league coach here in a moment talking about that, but it's very exciting because, again, this entire situation is a group of guys that were just making their debut in Major League Baseball, and they just came along so fast. His season doesn't even feel like it all happened in 1 year. It feels like it's been 3 seasons for him to get to this point.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, there were like distinct phases of this season. There was the initial call up, which is rough. There was the second call up when he pitched 1 game against the Tampa Bay Rays, and it did not go well for him, and he got sent down again the very next day. And then there was the last call up where it was like, all right, Brandon Pfaadt is starting to look like at least like a league average, pretty productive major league starter. And then there was the postseason when, like, the Phillies just like swing and miss at every single secondary pitch that Brandon Pfaadt throws. At least that's the way it felt in that game 3. I think the big question for me for Pfaadt moving into 2024 is, what does it look like for him to pitch into the 6th and 7th inning? Because that's something we didn't see
very true
in the postseason as much, right? A lot of these starts were pretty short. He only averaged a little over 4 innings per start in the postseason. Obviously, that was by design. The D-backs, they were playing it careful, as teams often do with young starters in the postseason.
Sure.
Heck, the Dodgers weren't even willing to allow Ryan Pepio to start a game in the postseason.
That's true. The Diamondbacks didn't have a choice, obviously.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks didn't have a choice but to count on Brandon Pfaadt, and he very much delivered.
Game 1 of the Wild Card Series, 67 pitches. Game 3 of the NLDS, 42 pitches. Game 3 of the NLCS, 70 pitches. Game 7 in the NLCS, 64 pitches.
Yeah.
And then the one that he threw the most was Game 3 of the World Series, where he threw 87 and had 5 1/3 innings pitch. But he was just good. He was just good all postseason long. And of course, yeah, you're right, because taking that next step, and obviously during the regular season, it's going to be a different story with the way that Torey lets him go. He's not going to pull
Brandon Pfaadt, or Torey doesn't allow Brandon Pfaadt to go like the 3rd time to the order ever. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be sustainable for a full season. So we are going to see what that looks like, and it'll be interesting. I mean, based on the picture that we saw in the postseason, I think it's reasonable to have some confidence that if you extend him out a little bit, he could still be a really effective starting pitcher. And yeah, like we said earlier, I mean, his progress next season is going to be one of the biggest X factors for this team.
Well, we know what time of the year it is, and you guys know I've been a huge fan of the holiday scratchers from Arizona Lottery. As much as he's not admitting it, I know that's what he's going to get me, and he's probably going to stop on his way to our planned dinner at Texas Roadhouse to get them. And I'm fine with that, because holiday scratchers are an excellent gift. And again, like I said on my Twitter video, rule number 8 is you do not have to share your winnings with the person that gave you a holiday scratcher. If you're the person giving out the holiday scratchers, though, maybe you don't remind the person you're giving them to of this rule. But there is a scratcher for everyone on your list, and they start at just $1. You can win up to $500,000. So make sure you get yourself some holiday scratchers as well and give them to anybody on your list, whether they were naughty or nice. Let's be honest, they all deserve some love. Go out and buy your holiday scratchers today. Find a retailer like our friends at Circle K near you at ArizonaLottery.com. You must be 21 or older to play. And also make some money over at BetMGM. It's a fun time of the year to be getting down on the same game parlays. I started betting the under on Suns stuff. I don't know what to tell you.
You did it. And I bet it worked.
I mean, it did work. You're absolutely right. It worked. I mean, these guys they're so lost. They're so lost, especially defensively. But
what are you betting the under on? Because you can't really bet the under on Kevin Durant and Devin Booker because they're still doing their thing.
You actually can.
Anything else
when they're supposed to always score 30 points a game, it's kind of easy
they combined
sometimes.
Didn't KD have 40 yesterday?
Yeah.
They still lost, man.
I know. I'm telling you, man, it's not been easy. But it doesn't mean I can't make some money while I'm watching them. You can too, and you can download the BetMGM Sportsbook app right now on iOS or Android, or visit betmgm.com and sign up using our promo code of PHNX. If you deposit at least $10 into your newly created account and place your first wager of that amount or more, you'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your bet loses. If your bet does lose, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. You can sign up today at BetMGM and use that bonus code of PHNX. Make sure to do so, and you will get that up to $1,500 back. Place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through the mobile application of at least $10. If that bet loses, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. Check out the show notes for full details, and now listen to Shane talk about the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
Ontario. You ever been to Ontario?
No, not once.
No,
not once. I think we're going to have to do this show from there one time.
PHNX D-backs family trip to Ontario.
They might make me mayor, Jesse. I don't know.
It better not be Ontario, California. Right?
Oh, yeah. No, we don't want to go there.
We're talking about Canadian Ontario.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, we could actually look into how Brandon Pfaadt transformed from the pitcher he was at the beginning of the season to the pitcher he became, but we would have no way to prove that. Like we said, we know he got some good advice. We know he got some good coaching, but there's something to be said about the person Brandon Pfaadt is. And both Jesse and myself had a chance to get to know some members of his family, some of his former coaches, his mom, who was absolutely delightful and absolutely refused to be interviewed because she thought that it could strongly impact his ability to go out there and perform. I think she just had past experience. There's a correlation. Yes, there was definitely correlation.
To the media, the more home runs that Brandon Pfaadt would allow. I think that was the situation.
They were on their way.
We totally respected that.
They were on their way to interview her, I think, during the NLCS, and she actually both ran for her life and had her family members stop them from coming over and talking to her.
It's totally fair.
I respect it.
Totally fair.
I respect the hell out of it. But the one thing everybody said about Brandon is the fact that this is kind of the guy that he's always been. We saw him do some incredible postseason interviews in front of a media room just packed to the gills with people and cameras and microphones and all of this stuff. And again, much like the way that he performed on the mound, he performed in these interviews, in these media sessions, which he very much does not like from what we've understood, like a pro, like a guy that's done it a million times before. And I mean, it was just, it absolutely was no surprise to so many of his family members and his former coaches that he is this guy, right? I mean, they've kind of said that his entire life, ever since he was a kid in Little League, he was kind of this guy.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty fun. I mean, the backstory here is that you and I were walking around
before Game 3 of the World
Series, in which this was Brandon Pfaadt's last outing of the season when all was said and done. And we were doing the man on the street thing. I had the camera, Derek's doing the interviews, and we're going around talking to people wearing these cool like throwback D-backs uniforms and whatnot, just trying to talk to as many people as we can. And then we see an enormous pack of people who are wearing like
all of them were wearing Brandon Pfaadt stuff.
Yeah,
either shirts or jerseys. Bellarmine jerseys. We saw some Bellarmine jerseys.
Bellarmine stuff. Yes. It was not hard to pick out the Pfaadt clan outside of Chase Field. So
we called it the family with a P in front, right?
Right.
The
Pfaadt PF
two
family.
A's.
Yes.
But yeah, they were delightful people. We had a chance to talk to a couple of them. His cousin skied at us, which was probably a highlight for me. Besides his mom telling us that she absolutely would not talk to us on camera, that was also
she was very nice to us.
She was great about it.
Which is very fair.
Yeah, she was great about it. But here is his cousin talking about just Brandon and kind of who he's been his entire career.
I think just the growth that I've seen from Brandon. He's worked his ass off for it. He truly is the most genuine guy I know. No ego at all. I'm his cousin. Live out in Kentucky with him, but just to see him, what he's done versus the Dodgers, the talent that they, have at bat, and then the Phillies, to see him strike out, what was it, 9 batters, I think, something like
crazy.
that.
Yeah, it was wild.
Just incredible. So we're all cheering for him in Louisville. So excited. Yeah.
He taught me how to say that properly. Louisville.
You got it.
I got it. Right.
Yeah.
There we go. Can we get? We need Brandon correcting. He corrected Jesse.
This was the best Brandon Pfaadt moment.
It really was.
I know he did. I know the 5 2/3 scoreless against the Phillies, but this was the best moment of Brandon Pfaadt's.
I'm not going to argue
Brandon
with that
Pfaadt's
at all.
2023 season.
So yeah,
where's home?
it's in Kentucky.
In Louisville or
Louisville? Yeah, Louisville actually, but I'll say Louisville.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, all good. We won't get into that.
You talking about me being mayor of the city of Phoenix? He became mayor of Louisville with that whole statement.
I'm pretty
the
sure
entire city retweeted us, I think, with that clip.
There was, I don't remember exactly who it was, but there was a politician from Louisville who pulled the clip. We posted this clip on Twitter, and it's like the most viewed clip we've ever posted on Twitter, which is hilarious to me. But yes, there were some Louisville politicians who were. I did mess it up the first time. I will admit that, but that was very, very funny.
Even his little league coach Mike came out and he talked about how he went out to see his first outing against the Texas Rangers. But here he is talking about just remembering Brandon being so coachable and such a great young player when he was in little league.
He's just such a coachable kid and a cool customer, And we've talked over the last 2 or 3 months, because you worried about how he got started and where he's at now and the phenomenal job he's done during the postseason. And he just takes it a game at a time,
Yeah.
And we're hoping for the best tonight.
He was incredible. He was incredible. Most Kentucky guy.
The accent is amazing.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, again, he comes from a family where his mom was a collegiate star in basketball herself, and I mean his all of his teammates were there. Like there was just a lot of love there from people that were part of his career throughout, and you could tell that there's still that closeness between him and them. It's not just like a weird like, hey, we showed up because we knew this guy at one point. No, they still talk to Brandon, and they're still very very involved in his life, and it's kind of wild for his little league coach just saying, I talked to him a little while ago and, blah, blah, blah. Like any, the fact that you still have that connection with so many people, especially people that had such a big impact on, your life and your career, just kind of shows his character and what a like kind of humble down home guy he kind of is. Like the whole calm thing is that's not like an act. Like it truly is just who he is. Like what we saw there out of that press conference where he just so calmly corrects him and then still is like, oh, you're not from there, so I'll let you pronounce it however you want kind of deal. It's amazing.
There was another funny moment, which we don't have this video, unfortunately, but you might have seen this on our social channels. I think we posted this back when it first happened. He was asked about like things he does, getting away from baseball, whether he likes other sports. And his answer was that he doesn't like other sports. Or he said he likes sports. He likes all sports, but he just doesn't really feel the need to pay attention to, and like he doesn't regularly follow sports outside of baseball. And someone followed up and was like, all right, most athletes are not like this. Like, what is it about other sports that you don't like? And yeah, he clarified. He was like, I do love all sports, but and then he also mentioned that he was in a fantasy football league this year for the first time. So he started watching.
Tommy Pham?
So he started. I don't know.
That's next year.
But he said that he started watching football and he kind of likes it. So
hey, good
look
for
at
him.
look at Brandon Pfaadt, you broadening his horizons, watching a little bit of NFL football.
The residents of Louisville are going to be furious with him about that when it comes to basketball. They're big basketball people there. I'm sure he should watch some basketball at least. But I get it. Because I don't really watch any other sports myself anymore. It's so hard. I mean, during the off season, I'm good. Basketball, I've always had passion for. The Cardinals, it's just hard. It's hard, but I do enjoy sports.
How dare you?
I don't
watch. I haven't watched a full length Cardinals game. And just can't do it. I'm not on that level of fan.
Nicholas said it earlier. The Coyotes and the D-backs, we're holding it down for the city. We're doing it for the Valley right now. We're trying to do our best.
Pretty remarkable comeback last night for the Coyotes.
It is. I mean, this Coyotes team is something special, and I probably shouldn't. I know. Again, we've talked Suns, we've talked Coyotes, we've even bashed the Cardinals on here. I'll take ZZ says, you know what's great? A delicious Four Peaks beverage. You know what's sad? Four Peaks isn't stocked in St. Louis near me. Someone tell them, please. We will get on that immediately, sir. And thank you so much for watching. We appreciate you watching out there. Thank you for the super chat. And we'll try to get you some Four Peaks out there. I don't know. We'll bring a bag to check in. Come out for a game. We'll smuggle you some back or something. You can check it in. Just don't take it on carry-on because they'll make you pour it out.
There you go.
But of course, shout out to Brandon Pfaadt for everything he's done for this team. And it's very exciting that we get to continue to watch these guys be on this roster for a number of years. I think the best for Brandon Pfaadt is still to come, to be honest. And that's a very exciting prospect.
Yeah, I mean, I am fascinated. I think it's going to be fun to see what Brandon Pfaadt's development looks like in 2024. And there are good reasons to believe that the D-backs really might have something here. I mean, I mentioned how incredible that sweeper was in the postseason. It was pretty incredible in the regular season too. I think it has the chance to be one of the top 20 or 30 like secondary pitches in all of baseball. I think it's that good. And it's just kind of a matter of, can the changeup take a little bit of a step forward? Can his fastball command take a step forward? The sinker was a really big pitch for him down the stretch, kind of a mid-season adjustment that really paid off for him in the postseason. It's a pretty compelling arsenal, and he doesn't walk guys, and there's a lot to like about his profile moving forward.
The one thing I really enjoyed watching him in the playoffs was it felt like he became a very cerebral pitcher that the confidence had impacted that, right? Where like he was throwing stuff to guys during that, those games against the Phillies that you just couldn't believe he's throwing with such confidence to these guys and having it work out. Like he knew he was facing aggressive hitters that were going to try to jump all over him based on his past, based on the fact he has given up a lot of hard hit balls and a lot of barrels, a lot of home runs. And he totally played them. He played on their aggressiveness, and it worked in incredible fashion. So
he just executed his pitches so well.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just like exactly where Gabby would set up. I mean, the postseason, it was just another level of being able to execute those pitches, and we saw that those early season questions of is his stuff good enough to really get major league hitters out at a high level. In the postseason, we saw, yes, it very much is. If he is able to, put those pitches where he wants to, which he was able to do remarkably well in the postseason, he has the stuff to be a pretty good major league starting pitcher.
Well, if you are looking for, again, a place to hang out with your loved ones, your family this holiday season, and maybe not have that get together in your home, Illegal Pete's is your go-to spot this holiday season. From catering to gift cards, they have the perfect gift for everyone at your holiday party, and could even be a great place for you guys all to get together, drink some of the strongest margaritas in Arizona, and have some of their mouth-watering food that will fill all of your heart's desires. Whether you're shopping for a margarita maniac like Damon or a queso connoisseur like Jesse, Illegal Pete's is your one-stop shop to spread the cheer. Grab $100 in Illegal Pete's gift cards and get an extra $25 gift card for free. Looking for some fun stocking stuffers? Check out their holiday merch sale. All t-shirts are just $15 through the end of the year. So do not miss out on the goodness over at Illegal Pete's. And again, when it comes to all of this stress around the holiday season, a great way for you to alleviate all of that stress is with our friends at OG's Brands. It's also a great way to get a good night's sleep, because I know sometimes with all of this holiday fun going on, it might be hard to get a good night's sleep. So check out OG's Sleep Edition Gummy. They are incredible. They are a slam dunk for your taste buds. Plus, you can customize your experience based on desired effect and strength. From their classics like the fruit and creams to my favorite, which is Peg's Raspberry Orange RSO. There's something for everyone in the OG's lineup. To learn more about OG's gummies and where you can find them, head on over to ogsbrands.com.
If you show up to Illegal Pete's, there's like a 20% chance that I'll be there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you show up
I'm there all the time.
If you show up to Illegal Pete's with OGs, there's like a 40% chance he'll be there.
Correct.
That's just
Derek's got it on the money.
I know.
That's where I was going with it next, but you beat me to it.
I haven't eaten anything really today, and that sounds so good right now.
That's usually us. We sit here and do these ad reads and be like,
we do our 1 o'clock show on completely empty stomachs.
No
and talk
breakfast,
about all this
no
delicious
lunch.
food.
Just us
I hate my job.
crunching stats and doing words, saying words. But of course, we thank you guys for being here. We are going to go feed ourselves eventually at some point tonight. We have to do that in order to sustain life. But in the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter to find out how we did on taking care of ourselves. I'm at cap_caveman with a K. Jesse is at Jesse N. Friedman. Of course, the People's producer, Damon. He is at Damon Dog. That's DAWG. We are Damon's Dogs. Bark, bark. Of course, our show is at PHNX_DBacks, but all roads do lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We thank you guys so much for stopping by. We appreciate your time. We also very much appreciate Brandon Pfaadt. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you absolutely shove in your rookie season in the postseason.
We all silly like the mayor.